worked in Baton Rouge for the Department of Natural Resources for the last 20-some-odd years. And I knew Cormier. We're going on 30 years now.
Yeah.
Easily. We used to fish a lot together.
You knew him when they called him bycatch?
Well, they used to call him Coma.
Yeah, an interesting story about that.
That's terrible.
They'll call you that one time.
I think the first time we met, you actually took a class, a fly fishing class with me and Joey
I
Kite.
did. That's right.
That's how we got started in this.
Yeah, I grew up fishing with fiberglass rods. That's all I knew how to cast. And I was at Shreveport Sports, and they had a big sale of fly rods, and I bought 2 Fenwick, a 5 and a 6-weight Fenwick for like $20. And they were first generation fiberglass, and I took them out and tried to cast them, and it was horrible. Because I went and took Catch's class at LSU on fly casting.
I'll give you $40 for them.
Still got 'em. They're back in the back of my closet somewhere.
The Fenwicks were really well made, and they've got a real band bump.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let them be on anti-truck stuff.
Okay, other than that, the only other business we have is, National Hunting and Fishing Day is coming up the last Saturday of the month. We've been involved with that for, as long as the club's been active again. And, we'll be out there again. Mike's gonna lead the charge this time. I'll be out of town. For the first time.
There ain't no we to it.
The first time I missed National Hunting and Fishing Day.
Right, you were there last year.
Yeah.
And the year before.
Yeah. So Mike's gonna be out there. We have the tent and everything. If anybody wants to come out and help, and if you got any volunteers, then
I think Carlson said you might come, right?
Don't come to Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Friday, said that. Chris?
Yeah.
I don't know who else, just, nobody really responded to it.
My time doesn't belong to me anymore. My time doesn't belong to me anymore. Long as my wife, I got the house remodel going on, so.
that's always the case. Anyway, we have some new fly rods for the club now. And I got reels and lines to match with them.
So what are we gonna do with the old?
We may keep them because,
Yeah, I'll bring the old one back.
yeah, we get a lot of people at fly fishing 101. But these are really nice rods. I have to tell you, this is Maxon. I've met those guys over at ICAST every year. They're great to work with. They gave us a great deal on it, on the lines and the rods. And they cast like a dream. I'm gonna tell you right now. And they're light in the hand. They're 8.5, 5 weights. And they balance just perfectly.
What are they?
Maxon is the name of the company. And they're out of Washington State. The rods are made in China, but the lines are made in Canada. And the line is pretty good. It's used to be TFO's top of the line, fly line. So same people made that, their custom line.
By the way, if you can tie a fly, okay? That's part of what we're gonna be doing. So, I know you can tie a fly, everybody in here can. So it's you don't have to stay all day long, but it is a service that you're doing. It's one of our, key things that we do here is try to spread the word about this way of fishing, which most people don't understand, but it's your chance to get out there and do it. And if you can cast a little bit, you can teach people to at least do the basic, pick up and lay down. So you got no excuse that you are not capable of doing it. So come on out and help out. Do your part, okay?
I'm putting the guilt trip on.
Right at.
Yeah. Hey,
He's not.
I had to do that one on the squad.
It's a great event. And it used to last 3:30 in the afternoon or something. We're gonna be back now, so you know, to what, 1:30 or something, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
it runs from, 8 o'clock to 1:30.
Where at? What time was it?
Just getting
open?
Gates will be open by probably 7:30.
Woodwork. Woodwork. They don't do it all.
I couldn't get a hold of them today, but if I get an update on when
And you look.
I know that, if you're
If
a volunteer, you get in maybe 30 minutes early.
If you go in about 7
We're
o'clock in
gonna-
the morning,
Mike's
have
gonna go,
that gate on the woodwork side open down the road towards the gun shop. And you can go in. Right there.
Mike's gonna do what I did, he's gonna go Friday afternoon, they have people helping, set the tent up, put the tables up, everything. So he'll just need some help, when he takes down, or maybe they'll help you when you take down,
Yeah,
they have in the past, so,
yeah. If I can't get it taken down, I'll just leave it there.
yeah. Okay, yeah,
It's yours, right?
yeah,
It's good.
No, we'll bring it back.
okay, any fishing reports before we go to Rob? Anything, anybody want to talk about anything in particular?
Orlando caught his first car,
Oh,
took him out Saturday, he was tickled pink. He didn't want to touch it though, but he was scared of it.
They are photos.
Lots of people.
Where did that is?
Near Texaco Town, like there at the end of 28th and
The version now.
yeah, well, past that.
Okay.
It's where the road ends, dead ends at 84.
Oh, okay.
There's a little,
Yeah.
you go to a little river maybe there. Yeah.
I know it's on.
I don't know if y'all seen the Red River lately, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. Well, I was out there yesterday at the park at Boyce. It's an oxbow back there. And I saw several gar up there.
Yeah,
And
they
that
were going all
oxbow,
over the place there. If you ever need kids car, this place.
That's a good place, yeah. Might be several varieties too, because it's got.
Yeah, I caught, spotted in to the short, spotted was gorgeous. I didn't get a picture because I got up on the shore and broke off. I flopped back in. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
My fishing report, I told Ken, I was fishing, the creeks out in the woods, out at Kisatchie.
Oh, okay.
And starting with a topographical map at home and seeing those little blue lines and then trying to find that on Google Earth and then trying to plot that in. And I've been catching a lot of little sunfish and a lot of the little red-eye bass, spotted bass.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sorry, what? What marijuana?
Yeah.
I'll give you a brief report from Cotillo. The fish have started, shad are running out there. The bass are busting in the shad.
They were doing it across lake today too.
They were,
That's all we
yeah.
have got for it.
So, and the crappie are doing pretty good, and they're catching some chicken fin right now in about 8 to 10 feet of water. So we're starting to, it's getting that October vibe right now.
Yeah.
And I think by middle of this week or something, we're supposed to have low 80s and low 60s
Yeah.
for several days. So look out, we'll do it.
I did catch a black-tailed red horse sucker fish. Wow. At the park in June. It's a clear little creek, I mean, it runs smooth, you know, clear. I didn't know what it was, I had to look it up. How big is that? Oh, about this big. Caught it on a size 20 gnat.
You edited in the mixed bag?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I never had seen one, didn't know what it was.
Wow. More tickets, right? More tickets, that chicken. Okay, Rob, you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I met Rob sometime back at one of the wildlife and fisheries meetings. He gave a presentation and then, he gave a presentation on aquatic, invasives in Louisiana at the Red Stick Club meeting. And I was there at that time. And, so I invited him to come speak to our club. I also follow him on Facebook and he's been doing a lot of tagging on the Red River invasive carp. And so we'll probably talk about that tonight since it's about, he's the aquatic invasive coordinator for wildlife and fisheries. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so without any further ado, I know y'all can't see Rob right now, but without any further ado, I'll introduce Rob and let him, give a presentation. Go ahead,
All right,
Rob.
yeah, and I'll give you a little background. I've been working for the department since mid about 2008. Was worked in the commercial data section for a while, then became a habitat biologist. I was one of the leads on the BP spill and the Andrea assessment, and then I got into the permitting world where I'd permit research permits and invasive species, aquatic invasive species. And I've been doing this for about 10, 12 years now. And I'm here to just update you guys on our program and give you a little update on what we're doing with the invasive carp. At the end, I'll turn on my video and we can have some question and answer. If you have a question about something I say, interrupt me. This is supposed to be more of a free reigning talk, not just me lecturing to you guys. That's boring. Interactive talk is much more entertaining. So without any further, I'll go ahead and get started. So what you see here is what's called the invasive curve. And basically what it shows is that if you can prevent the species from getting here, you have less money to spend. Your bang for the buck is more important stopping them before they get here. As it goes on in time and the area infested gets bigger, you get to the point where you probably can't eradicate them. You can't remove them all from the system. And you get to where you might have to start restoring natives. Maybe you need to start looking at protecting native species from other uses, other consumptive uses. And that could be a problem for us when we're used to using our natives. And so just keep this in mind. You'll see this throughout. I have a couple of species that I'll put them on the invasive curve to kind of give you an idea where I think they're at right now in Louisiana. And this is just it's an abstract concept. It's not a, hard, fast rule here, but it gets the point across that spending your money early before they're here is the best bang for your buck. And so in Louisiana, we have a lot of different invasive species. You guys up there you don't have apple snails in a lot of areas. I will show you a map with some apple snails. If you've been to South Louisiana, you see these pink bubblegum looking things along any kind of hard structure. Those are hundreds of apple snail eggs. And so there's a big problem down here. The invasive carp, starting at the top of that picture, is a big head, then a silver carp, grass carp, and then the one at the bottom is a little black carp. And I'll explain what all those do. And we have a lot of aquarium releases. Our subtropical climate allows those fish to live a little while out in the wild, and usually they don't get established. In our marine system, not so that we forget about them, we have such things as tiger shrimp. So we have a very diverse, we're not Florida yet, but we have a lot of different invasive species problems here. So speaking of apple snails, they're to the point where we are probably beyond where we can manage them, where we can eradicate them. They've spread across most of the state, and they're really hard to get rid of. The toxins that we use to poison them also kill crawfish, also kill bluegill. So it's not something we want to dump out in the wild and start really controlling these things. Hey, if you got a farm pond in the backyard and you want to get rid of apple snails, I'm sure we can get a poison to you that'll do it, tell you what to use. But other than that, I wouldn't want to use that poison out in the wild. I don't want to kill our native fish. I don't want to make the problem worse. Apple snails, like you saw the top picture there, hundreds of eggs. You can see the eggs coming down from the female right here, laying the eggs. This other picture right here with the tree, that was after some high water that sat in the area over here in Baton Rouge. And they had a population explosion. Probably because they like eating all that fresh grass, that yard grass that gets in the water and floods. If you ever seen St. Augustine grass or any kind of yard grass, when it gets submerged for a while, it turns kind of that sickly lime green, olive green color. They seem to just eat that like candy. And they like our ditches. If you're in South Louisiana, even up there with you guys, a lot of roadside ditches. They like that kind of nasty habitat that nothing else can live in. And you get them in large, large numbers, as you see in these pictures here. They eat our native vegetation. They seem to prefer it more than they prefer the exotic vegetation. They don't really eat anything that floats. And when push comes to shove, they will eat dead fish. They'll get in crawfish ponds, eat the bait that they're using for crawfish. And so they're a big problem. They're called apple snails because they get to be about the size of your fish, about the size of a small apple. This is a map showing the southeast part of the United States, and you can see these dots are, I think they're different. They're different years. The blue dots are different years and different densities, and you can see they along the coast. We have 3 red dots in Louisiana. That's the recent ones this year. We have one up around Bunkie. We have a spot in Alexandria. And those both have survived this past winter where it dropped down to 5 degrees in Baton Rouge. And I was hopeful that I would not see a lot of apple snails. They took a little while to rebound, but those 2 populations have been confirmed that they are back in existence. So we kind of know now that once they rerun the model and the population model and see how they can spread, that they probably can go throughout the whole state. The dot up there on Shreveport was a couple of months ago. That population looks to be established. There was a lot of eggs, one basically every 5 to 10 feet around the circumference of that pond. And so that's not one snail that just decided to take up a home there and have some babies. That looks like a few snails that's been going along there for at least a year, I would guess. Kind of those other 2 dots that are kind of yellow, those are older, unconfirmed, no picture reports. I didn't put much stock into the one up there in Monroe, but now I'm kind of wondering if maybe that is an accurate location of them. And so as you can see, they're along the coast. We thought they would be able to be controlled by winter, but perhaps they can go further north. Interesting little fact is that red fire ants and apple snails kind of have the same range back where they come from. And so there is some thought that perhaps they have the same temperature tolerance. So if that's the case, fire ants can go all the way up to Tennessee. Maybe apple snails can too. They have the unique ability, or one of their abilities is to hide in the mud in the bottom of a lake, close up their little operculum. It's like a little trap door in their shell. And they can sit in that for weeks or months at a time and not have to come out. And while I know you guys are in quote unquote North Louisiana, I don't think any of us have seen a lake freeze solid enough to kill a snail frozen in the mud in the bottom of a frozen pond. And so I really do think that these guys can pretty much take over and be across the state. Very annoying that they don't seem to die when they're supposed to be honest. So March 2024, we had some snails that got shipped off to Arkansas. It was about 13 snails that caused a big ruckus for me. Their people contacted me. We met with the other state agencies, and we had to come up with a response. Now, we have crawfish that are in ponds, and we have crawfish that are wild caught. Crawfish in ponds are managed by the Department of Agriculture. Wild caught crawfish are managed by Wildlife and Fisheries. Our wholesale retail dealers are managed by Wildlife and Fisheries. That's how we get our seafood and our trip tickets and all. And so we had to have a group effort. And so we focused on our effort is we contacted the people that we manage. Our crawfishermen, our wild-caught crawfishermen, our distributors, and our retailers. And we sent this nice little letter out just asking them to check their stuff. Make sure you're not sending something else outside of the state. And the other thing I did is we came up with this idea here of advertising to you, the general public. You're the last stop before this snail or invasive species can get out in the wild. All of us have eaten crawfish, have found a piece of weed, a little ram's horn snail, which is a native, the little black ones that are a little spiral, or maybe even salvinia or something else in our seafood. If we can be that last step and clean up that snail before it gets out, then we have a better chance of not spreading it. And so we found out later that probably what happened that year was the perfect storm of bad luck. We had the drought going on. If you know anything about the crawfish industry, when they harvest the crawfish out the fields, they like to grade them. They can get more money for the real big ones, less money for the smaller ones. That year, because they were only catching 2, 3, 5 sacks at a time versus 20, it wasn't worth the money for them to go ahead and grade them. And so they just shipped them as field run crawfish. What that did is they didn't have that next step of cleaning the crawfish. And so this past year, we've had no instances reported by Arkansas of apple snails being shipped in crawfish. And so a combination of bad luck and I just think it's bad luck that caused these animals to get shipped to Arkansas. Luckily, none of them managed to get out so far. Arkansas is apple snail free. I would like to not be the reason why Arkansas gets apple snails. I'm friends with their ANS coordinator, aquatic nuisance species coordinator, and him and I joke. He sent me a fish we'll talk about later, and I'm trying to send him apple snails. So it's we work together. We try to reach out to everybody to have good outreach with the public, good outreach with each other. And so it's a group effort to try to take care of the resources and not let these animals spread. Speaking of what Arkansas sent us, snakeheads. If you didn't know, snakeheads have made it down the Mississippi River. And I feel that this one sighting we have is probably not the only one here. There's a lot of river between Natchez and Lake Providence up there, and there's been a lot more sightings on the east side in Mississippi than there has been in Louisiana. I think probably we just don't fish that river. We have too many other good places to fish that we don't need to go and fish to Mississippi. And so I really do believe they're here. I believe that there could be further south. The video that we had that was confirmed from Louisiana was a pair of snakeheads swimming around their ball of fry. And if you look up snakehead behavior, they protect their fry. That's what makes them so successful. And so snakeheads would probably be on the containment part, maybe still in the containment part, but we're moving into asset protection and long-term management. It's hard right now to say what we're going to do. We've only had one seen 2 years ago. And so right now we're kind of watching our own samples, waiting for someone to catch them. If you follow what's going on in Virginia and Washington, those fish, they're kind of associated with weed patches. They're very similar habitat to what we would catch our bowfin or our shoepeak. And so sooner or later, somebody's going to catch one. When you do, please let me know. I'll give them information at the end. And I really think they're already in the Mississippi River. It could be some climate issues. They're climate matched, and they do a model on what their home range is really centered in Missouri and Arkansas. And as it gets further to the south, it gets harder for them to live. So perhaps our good old summer heat down here is keeping them at bay. But I know you guys like to chase some different fish. I'm a fly fisherman myself. And so I do want to catch one of these just to beat somebody else at work who wants to catch the first one. So if I do find one, I'm going to go and try to get it. The other thing we have is swamp eels. These showed up about 2020 in Bayou St. John. They're just an eel. I don't have a good picture on here. I should have grabbed one. They're a light brown with a lot of glitter is only gold glitter. When you put them in the sun, they're really pretty for the color, right? It's a brown color with glitter. It's not just a nasty old brown eel. It's got some sparkle in it. Got some sparkle in it to make it look better. These things have not moved out of their 2 mile stretch of river, Bayou St. John. We managed to go out there every couple of months with normal sampling. Professors out of Loyola and Tulane have gone out there and looked. They're multiple age classes. We got little 2-inch eels, 20-inch eels. So they've been there for a couple of years. We just don't see them moving out of there. Don't know why. They could move and we might not know because they are hard to sample, but I really think they're kind of confined right now to that area. Swamp eels, because of the small area that they're in, I can't tell you where they're at. We've still got a chance at eradicating them, I think. Very small chance. But we're probably in that containment phase more than anything else. I'm really trying to work with the locals there. They have a big water hyacinth removal program going. And what we found is that the little baby eels like to hide in the roots of the water hyacinth. So we're trying to make sure they're not taking the hyacinth, throw it in the back of a pickup truck and going driving down the highway to dump somewhere else, whether it's a landfill, somebody's field that they want to dispose of hyacinth in. We're trying to talk to them, make sure they let it dry out for a week or two and have less of a chance of accidentally moving those animals. Some of the marine species, that is not my arm over there, but that shrimp, basically, if you think of a broomstick, a little bit bigger than a broomstick, you will have a 12 inch shrimp. More than likely, everybody in the room over there, whether you know it or not, has eaten a tiger shrimp. Tiger shrimp are the second most prevalent shrimp in the aquaculture industry. They grow really fast. They grow twice as fast, 3 times as fast as our own shrimp. So what would normally take a shrimp 6 months to grow, they can get it to market in 2. And so that's why that shrimp is in aquaculture. When you cook it, it just turns a little redder than our normal shrimp. The two down there, y'all talking about hunting and fishing day. The two down there were guests at hunting and fishing day in Baton Rouge, probably about 2012, 2014. And I can tell you that bigger one in there, he did taste pretty good wrapped in bacon when I got home from the event. You know, as a biologist, you got to taste what you're trying to fight, right? So that little bitty shrimp right there, we caught with electrofishing, and you can see the stripes on its antenna, which is another indication, if you can't tell in the body since it's kind of dark, that that's a tiger shrimp. We caught that one by Point Lahash in the marsh. Um, Only one we've ever seen that size. They don't seem to be a problem. I'm hesitant to even guess where they would be on the invasive curve. I really think that the ones we're seeing are probably escaped larvae from Caribbean or Mexican aquaculture facilities that happen to grow up and swim towards Louisiana. So far this year, I have gotten 0 reports, and right now is really when I usually start seeing them with the white shrimp season. So we'll see. I've had as many as a dozen, 25, 30 reports, and I've had years where I've had none. And so this is really a kind of strange one. I really think they're escapees from aquaculture in the Caribbean and Mexico. Some other aquatic invasive species we've had, and you guys, I'm not going to talk about the Rio Grande cichlid in this, but I'll give a brief mention. It has spread to Baton Rouge now. It is in Homa also. Um, the Rio Grande cichlid just doesn't get me excited as far as invasive species. It occurs in Texas right alongside bluegill and bass, sunfish and bass. It's something I can't control, so I don't spend a lot of effort on it. It's it's not that bad. You know, it really isn't. It can cause some issues, but it's not that bad. However, this guy here in the bottom, you should all recognize as a tilapia. If you've been around New Orleans area, Ketch was probably down Baton Rouge, New Orleans area when this happened. We had tilapia down in Plaquemines Parish. Wildlife and Fisheries had some money from the organization, company, industry, whatever you want to call it, that gave to us to contain their mistake. They brought the fish in illegally, it escaped. So we went down there and did an eradication program. Since that time, back in the early 2000s, 2012, 2010 range, this fish has spread to New Orleans. It's in the Kenner Canals. That was last year when the hurricane was coming in. You might remember the fish that people were seeing swimming in the street. Well, while everybody else is concerned about their houses and all, I'm trying to look at the videos of the fish to make sure they weren't the tilapia that I knew were in the canals. Turns out they weren't. They were common carp. That was kind of an easy breathing easy a little bit on that. I thought the winter would kill them. This snowfall event we had this year, not so much. They managed to survive that and are back in the canals and now right on the edge in the Pontchartrain on the pump stations that they have, right on the edge right there. I haven't had any reports from beyond that. There's been some cast net catches right there by the pump stations. The canals, it's a running Facebook, 504 Facebook fishing, 504 fishing or something on Facebook. These guys are constantly catching them, cast nets and otherwise. I hate to say it, we tried once and failed in a small area. I don't see this going away unless Mother Nature can give us, another 96 hours of cold weather. You'll notice that star right there in Baton Rouge. We had some in Crest Lake. Oh, that would have been about 2016 through 2019. They were there. We were monitoring. We didn't really advertise it much. We put it out on our normal channels, but we didn't put on any press releases. There was nothing we can do. You weren't going to go and kill the LSU lakes with rodent on 'em. You can't really control them anywhere else. And so we decided to monitor the population. We had a cold spell that year that dropped us below freezing in Baton Rouge for close to 100 hours. That was enough to kill those fish. We had somebody reported a fish kill. It was a tilapia that we found. We had another lady tell us they had a whole bunch of them dead in Crest Lake after the freeze, and she described them as bluegills with big fins. I showed her a picture, and she said that's what it was. And since that time, we're going on 5 years now. We'll do another couple of samples this year, probably one sampling this year. And kind of my old rule of thumb is if I don't see the animal after 5 years, it's probably not here anymore. And so I think we got them in New Orleans. I know we got them in New Orleans. I don't think we have them anywhere else in Baton Rouge or North. The little diamond, the little triangles you see is another fish. It's another crab. It's called the mitten crab. It's got little fuzzy mittens. It's really hairy and it just gets dark, picks up dirt and stuff. These animals have been, I feel they've been chasing me my entire career. Back in the 90s, I was a research assistant at USL at the time. Now it's UL, right? My job was to package up specimens in the crustacean lab and send them on to the Smithsonian. I was talking to my major advisor, the guy who was over my work then, and he says, Rob, I think you mailed those two specimens to the Smithsonian because it was right around the time you were working for me. Since that time, three of them have shown up in Louisiana in the last 3 years. Two of them you see down in that corner, one on the east side, one on the west side. The other triangle is the original location of them. And then we found one in some iNaturalist is the name of the app. It's an app that you take a picture of an animal and it or a plant and it tells you what it is. We found one in iNaturalist up by Bonacary Spillway. It was sucked into the intake of the Little Gypsy electrical plant right there. And so this animal goes out to salt water, has its babies, and then swims upstream. Believe it or not, guys, they would probably swim all the way to you. They can go probably 1,500 miles up the river, 1,500 kilometers, I believe it is. And so that puts it all the way up to almost Memphis that they could go up the river in a season. Um, as far as impacts, they dig small holes in levees. Nothing that would undermine something the size of the Mississippi River levee. But if you had a small levee around your private pond, crawfish pond, these guys could dig a hole in it and cause you some trouble. So just something else. I don't want to say cool, but it feels like it's following me, to be honest. And, I hope it goes away and disappears and leaves for another 20 years.
Have they been to eat?
Yes, we have a Chinese guy that works for us in wildlife and fisheries, and he said it's the best tasting crab in China. So, since I don't know what other kind of crabs are in China, I'm gonna assume that they taste pretty good. Um, I've never had a bad crab if it's a fresh, good crab. And so I imagine it is pretty good. It comes over here. It came over here in ballast water, but they are found in the Asian market trade.
Hmm.
So some of the aquarium releases, and most of you guys, probably recognize at least one of these. And I'll start off over here in the one that's facing up and down. That fish got sent to us, and it's a story, and sometimes that biologists have to become criminal investigators, so to speak, or investigators. So he sent us that fish and said it was over here in Baton Rouge in a Breck pond. We went out there, we looked around, we figured out that that was a Murray cod. So we went around, looked around, could not find it at all. Could not find enough water in that area to shock in. We had to kind of stick the nose of the boat in the water and shock kind of not the correct way. We didn't find anything. We didn't really find any fish. And so we went back to him and we talked to him. One of the biologists says, man, that dirt doesn't look like Louisiana dirt. Doesn't look like the dirt we're sampling in. So we started looking around. There was some construction further north of some new houses. I'm like, well, that could be fill dirt. He might be back at one of those ponds doing something he's not supposed to. And he just decided to tell us the closest water body that he was legally able to fish in, right? Went back, looked around, couldn't find it. So we called him again. And I had already run this thing through Google image search, 2 million images searched or whatever it was, never found a picture. And we start talking to him, and I said, "Hey, can I use your picture in one of our PR publications to get the word out?" And he says, "That's not my picture." "Well, what do you mean it's not your picture?" "Well, I took a picture of my fish and I put it into Google to identify it, and this is the picture that Google said I caught."
Oh, Google.
And so, more than likely, this was a bass with some weird patterns on it, and Google was wrong, and we got sent this, and we got spent, 3, 4 days hunting for a wild goose, in this case, a wild fish, and never found it. So, lesson learned, we try to make sure we ask that question first. I run everything through a Google image search immediately if you send me something that's odd. But the possibility was still there because there is a forum online, Monster Fish or something like that, and they had one of these fish in Louisiana. So it was possible, and that's why we did so much effort to try to find this fish. It's not an illegal fish to possess in Louisiana, so that was another issue that, the possibility was there. You'll see the peacock bass on the top right there. That peacock bass was in Bayou St. John, same place as the swamp eels, same exact spot. It's a kayak launch right there across from City Park. Well, I was familiar with that site because of my work that I did with the swamp eels. There's no pine trees there. And you'll notice that that thing is sitting on pine needles. And I went, oh, great, we're doing this again. I believe this one because the poor guy that caught it posted on Facebook is how I found it. And he had one treble hook in the fish and one treble hook in his hand on the picture. And so he, quote unquote, ripped the fish off the treble hook, threw it back in, and went to the hospital. And so I really thought it was real because who would post a picture of their hand if they really didn't catch the fish, right? So we sent a biologist out there, one of the local guys, and he calls him back. He says, "You're right, Rob. I can't find pine needles anywhere." Well, I'm texting him back and forth, kind of looking on maps and trying to direct him where to go look for some pine needles. And the guy calls me and he says, "Hey, I never got a chance to talk to you. We chat a little bit." And he says, "Well, I'm right down the street. I can meet you out there." I said, "Well, hold on a second." My biologist was still there. They met up. Come to find out that they had some portalets in the area. And when they moved the portalet, it killed the grass. The company had dumped the pine needles there. So this one was accurate. This was um, a peacock bass that was in Bayou St. John. He doesn't think the fish was alive because the fish was bleeding just as much as he was. So hopefully it died. We're not sure. We didn't catch anything the last 3 years doing our regular sampling. They are a little bit more tender in cold weather than most of the things I've talked to you about earlier. So more than likely, if it didn't die that from getting its face ripped off, it probably died during one of our winters. That last one down there is another good story I have. It was my birthday 3 years ago, May 26th. Got a call to come pick up this fish, and the guy tells me I think it's a pacu. I said, okay, I'll swing by. So I swing by, grab the fish. Didn't really look at him that close. Again, it's my birthday. I want to go home. Threw him in a 5-gallon bucket, threw my office, went on home, come back the next day, and he's still there, and I'm kind of playing with him. If you ever had a big fish in a fish tank, some big fish like to have their foreheads rubbed. And so I'm rubbing his forehead. I'm playing with the fish. I had some online meetings to attend to. The lady next to me, I was getting ready to send the fish off to freezer camp. And the lady next to me asked me if she could see what a pacu looked like. I said, oh, certainly. So I grab a bucket, grab my fish, go in her office, and I pick him up out of the water and I look into his face. And I realize that he has triangular, jagged teeth. The main difference, besides the coloration being a little shinier in a piranha, is that piranhas have jagged teeth, pacus have straight. Some words came out of my mouth that I won't repeat right now. And it was a piranha. And basically, the entire agency came visit my office. And every time they come down, I'd stick my hand in a bucket, grab my piranha out of the bucket. All of them were amazed that I still had 10 fingers left. And I will tell you that, yes, I still have all 10 fingers. He never bit me. He went off to freezer camp. Unfortunately, the freezer thawed out and he turned into jelly. And so he's no longer with us. But piranhas are not, they make good, scary movies. If you're bleeding, I might not jump in the water with them, but they're typically not going to come and devour you like you see the the scary movies. They like to nip fins. They like to eat stuff that's bleeding. Take it for what it's worth. I still have all 10 of my fingers. And so we'll stop right there. If y'all have any questions on that part before I get into the carp management, I'll take them right now.
I had a question on the snails. Do they have any, natural predators here?
Yes, sir. So they do. Basically anything that's going to eat a regular snail in Louisiana is probably going to eat them. I heard somebody say shell crackers. The problem there is they grow fast, and so they're going to come out of that bite size quicker than our native snails. We have a bird that came in called a limpkin. They used to live in Florida. They've now spread across the southeast. They eat a lot of snails. They're eating the apple snails, and we think what's going on with them is that energy source that they have of the apple snails has allowed them to really have a boom in their population, and they're now almost all across the Louisiana. I've seen reports of them as far north as Oklahoma and even Virginia. The problem is they don't have any apple snails, so they're eating endangered mussels up there. You can't have everything your way. Some, good with the bad. But yeah, that's the main two things: our native fish, some raccoons, some ants eat the eggs. Most other things don't eat the eggs. And I forgot to mention the other thing with that snail is it has a parasite called rat lungworm. And basically, the closest organ to a rat lung in a human is your brain. And so that worm will burrow into your brain and cause you to have encephalitis. So don't go around licking any apple snails or eating any of them raw.
I know a lot of people go to South Florida to catch peacock bass. Is there any contemplation about intentionally bringing invasive species in for entertainment purposes or aquaculture like tilapia?
Yeah, so I'm also in charge of the aquaculture program that we run. I don't think I really don't think tilapia is on our list. That was legislatively mandated. We currently don't have anybody doing it. I don't see us bringing in peacock bass. We bring in the rainbows because we know they will die at the end of the year, at the end of the winter. I don't see the peacock bass happening. I think if that would ever be proposed, I think they would probably do some studies in ponds or tanks to see if it would to last, but I don't see it happening. Um, we're we kind of like our native fish here. I know you guys are like me. I like having hundreds of fish on my life lift. I'm not up to 100 yet, but I don't see it happening. I suggest going and take that ride to Florida and catch all of them you can. All right. Any more questions or I'll move on?
Move on, Rob.
All right. So I'm gonna give you a little talk about our Louisiana invasive carp program, or what I like to call it as LICM, LICM. So far, I've gotten away with that acronym, so I hope to continue on that, and we'll see if I get in trouble later on. So the problem with invasive carp is we have four species. We have bighead, silver, grass carp, and black carp. Silver carp, they combine these guys knock out the entire food chain. They start in the base of the food chain and they will knock out every part of it. Silver carp, they eat phytoplankton. That's the little chlorophyll plants in the water that swim around, make that nice, beautiful color that tells you that that pond has got some life in it. And then the big head carp over there, they eat zooplankton. That's the little critters that are slightly bigger than phytoplankton. That's your rotifers, your amphipods, other little fish larvae and shrimp larvae in there, and they eat that. And so that's your main two food sources for most of your sport fish. Grass carp will get into a pond and eat all of the vegetation. I will say that both Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries and the general public will use grass carp to control grass. Those grass carp are triploid. Basically, they're sterile and they can't reproduce. And so it is a tool, but in the wild, they have breeding populations of these that have spread across the southeast. So it's not real good to have grass carp swimming around in the general wild areas. You get a lot of breeding going on with them. Black carp is something that we have. It's kind of the one out of all three that no one talks about, no one sees. These guys will eat insects, crustaceans. They primarily like mussels and clams, And so a lot of our endangered mussels and clams, they eat crawfish also. And so these guys also knock out that part of the food chain. We have all four of them here. And so far, the fifth bad boy that's coming down from Canada has not made it here yet. That's a Prussian carp. And from what I understand from a Prussian carp is anything on this screen, it can basically do much more damage because it's a generalist. It can eat a lot of different things. We're doing our best to keep those out and leave them up north where they're not bothering us. So it wouldn't be a fly fishing talk if I didn't have some flies up here. These are not my flies. These flies were both given to a friend of mine when he retired. And you can kind of see that they did a pretty good job. Unfortunately, I have the one in the top fly is the one in the bottom and the one in the top and the picture of the fish. And so that's big head and silver larva, larval fish, young of the year fish. And you can see that they do indeed look like the fly. I don't think he ever used them. He probably put them on it, left them in their frame and put them on the shelf. And just thought I'd throw that in there. Even silver carp, you can tie a fly that looks like it. And more importantly, if you look at those fish, they superficially resemble a lot of things that are in the water that our fish eat. Shad, different minnows. And so that also is a problem when it comes to how they spread. Us as fishermen, if we get a scoop of fish and we think we have all shad in there, but we have a couple of these guys in there, we could accidentally move those fish to other water bodies. So invasive carp, in my opinion, right now, we're in the asset management program. How do we catch enough to reduce the ecological impacts is what I'm looking at. We have the invasion front, which is along the western part of the state near the Mermentau. They have made it to the Pearl River, so our invasion front on that side is already in somebody else's state, somebody else's problem. They've not made it to Toledo Bend or the Sabine River yet. We're going to do our best to keep it that way. They were not in Lake Bruin until June of 2024. We were going to Lake Bruin in July of 2024 to do a live scan sonar study to make sure there was no carp there because there weren't. And we got a video late June of carp in Lake Bruin. We went and did our study anyway, confirmed it with live scope, confirmed it with some electrofishing. And we're going back in the next couple of weeks to do some more work there just to have a look around, see if they stayed, see if they left. We haven't had any reports. So we're kind of hopeful that maybe a few got in at a high water or got in a couple of years ago, got trapped, and perhaps either left or died out. Lake Bruin has a kind of a little sill water feature on the end of it that lets water in and out. And so we know they can jump. Maybe they left, maybe they died out. We'll just have to see. And so really right now, we're on that prevention from going any further. How we do that, we hope fishermen catch them, and we'll talk more about that right now, but that's really one of our only tools in our toolbox. Again, that's the picture of them over there, the four different species. These right here in the middle with the classic fisheries biologist measuring tool of your foot in the picture are some silver carp that swam into somebody's pond during a high water event. She called us and said, I had some big fish in my pond and they weren't there yesterday before the rains. They're here now. And they got in there and they just died out. Little half-acre pond. I think there was just not enough food in there, or the oxygen got bad. The native fish seemed fine, but she had 20 or 30 of these guys in there. And this was an offshoot that basically the drainage canal goes into a swamp that connects to the river north of Baton Rouge. And they swam that gauntlet of trees into that cement line canal into a 3-foot wide drainage ditch, and then got into this lady's pond at the high river. And so kind of weird, but at the same time, it shows you that they're determined. They can get almost anywhere with a little bit of water. In Louisiana, as you know, we get a couple of inches rainfall. The entire landscape is water they can swim in. That's them jumping out of the water. That was at Three Rivers. You can kind of see one in the background there, and this one right here. About 30 seconds after this picture was taken, one decided to, instead of getting away from the boat, he decided to come in over the back, over the motor, and try to get me in the back. And they do hurt. I had a nice fish imprint on the back of my shirt that day. So I think he was out to get me, to tell you the truth. So what we're using to fund this is the Invasive Carp Partnership. This is some money from the federal government. It's about 35 million annually, split between all of the states that have carp and some states that are on the edge of having carp. And we're part of two river basins, the LMR, which is the lower Mississippi, and the ARW, which is the Arkansas red white. We get about $1 to $2 million annually in each sub-basin, and we competitively and cooperatively work with the other states to get that funding here. We're encouraged to partner with other states, other organizations, federal. I partner with a lot of the universities in the state, and we submit proposals to this group. We vote on them as a group, and the best proposals come to the top, and those are the ones that get funded. I've had a lot of partners and nobody really from up your way. And that's not because I don't like you guys. There's just not a lot of fisheries work being done on most of the universities up that way. There's a lot of some other work being done, but no one does some big river research. Down in Nichols, Dr. Quentin Fontenot, he's a great larval biologist. He's been doing work with us since 2013 on larval carp identification. We have him involved. Dr. Mike Dance at LSU, that's that FAMEL. Don't ask me what that stands for. He does our telemetry work, and that's just tracking them where they go. We'll talk about that in a minute. Lumcon did some work for me where we made fish meal out of the carp and put them into some feed products, as well as this Aqua Range Research. They're the ones who put together those fish things. Fish and Wildlife is who the grant money came from, and they come down and offer us some assistance in catching fish. Of course, we did some work with inland fisheries here in Wildlife and Fisheries. Dr. Robinson's lab at UL, she does a lot of work with photos, and we'll talk about some cool stuff that we have going on with them. And then the LSU Ag Center here in Baton Rouge did some work with us with stable isotopes, which I'll explain what that is. And in ERDIC is the Army Corps of Engineer Research and Development Center in Vicksburg. They did some studies with us also. And so some of the stuff we did is we had this question of, can they use low salinity water and move between river basins? And I think that's probably the presentation Ketch saw me give a couple of years ago. And we weren't concerned at that point, but we have a little bit more concern now because we had a couple of fish actually hang out in Vermilion Bay for a couple of months in the winter and then immediately swim back upstream. During that time, Vermilion Bay had a max salinity of 5 and a low salinity of about 1 to 2. So they can tolerate some salinity. That 6 parts per thousand salinity is enough when the Bonnie Carey spillway is open to put our fish leaving through that part of Lake Pontchartrain and swimming almost all the way to Dolphin Island. If you're Southern Alabama, Mobile Bay, and you don't have carp, that should be very scary for you. These fish on a high river year with the Pascagoula and all these other rivers coming off of Mississippi, those fish could island hop from Louisiana all the way to Mobile Bay and maybe even beyond. And so we did show that. The other thing we've shown is that these fish have some sort of site fidelity back to a breeding location. That picture in the top, 2 fish tagged 2 years apart, basically followed the same pattern. They were down by Berwick, Morgan City area, swimming around, living their life for most of the year. And it was like somebody turned on a switch. And within 2-3 days' time of each other, both of these fish took off north, swam through the various rivers, and came right south of Monroe by Columbia, Louisiana, by that lock structure on the Ouachita. These fish, we think that's their breeding location. And so this year coming up, starting in January, we'll be out there trying to tag those fish to see if, we're going to do it in March when they're there, to see if that population all returns to the same spot. You think of like a salmon, they always go back to their breeding river, or do they disperse across the state? From there, we hope that we learn a little bit if there's different sites, what makes that site attractive to them. Why do they want to come to that site to lay eggs? We know the requirements of moving water, turbulent water, but what is it about there that 2 random fish, and I should add those 2 fish were tagged a year apart, but they both left almost in the same day the following year. So there's something there. And so we're going to move there, and then we're probably going to do some more stuff. We got most of the state covered in the last 5 years, as you can see. We're probably going to do some more stuff towards Lake Charles because we'd like to know what's keeping them outside of that area, and is there anything we can do with structures or the intercoastal waterway to kind of deter those fish from going to Texas. If they get to Texas, that's a whole nother ball game because there's a lot of little rivers in Texas that they could live in, and Texas has a lot of political pull that our pot of money could disappear if you want to think of it in that way. But we're also being a good a steward to try to keep this fish contained here in Louisiana before it can spread elsewhere. We did some impacts to natives in some behavior studies. We wanted to know how are they impacting our native fish. Silver carp, they should eat what buffalo and shad does, and we did this stable isotope study. Stable isotopes basically are a study that we take a piece of the animal and we run it through analysis, and we take the um, different things that they could eat in the environment and run it through the same analysis. It comes out that you are what you eat. If you're a bass and you eat a lot of shad, you're going to look like you eat a lot of shad on the thing. You're going to be in that shad bubble of the different elements that we're looking at. And so I don't have the picture there because it's really nasty and gets complicated. But what you see there in that graph, and I should tell you, I need to step back, you'll see which research organization did the work with us. And so these were ERDIC and Ag Center that did these. That was Mike Dance's lab that did the ones earlier. This is when you compare paddlefish to carp in a mesocosm, in a swimming pool, basically. The carp were able to outcompete, out-eat the paddlefish, and the paddlefish died within about 2 months' time. We didn't expect it to happen that quick, but it was very quick in a couple of weeks' time that all the paddlefish died. This is important because we are showing that even if we can't do anything to combat the silver carp, they are having an impact on our fisheries. And so maybe we need to look at how do we protect those fisheries? Do we enhance them with stocking? Do we put some regulations in place? Do we try to find some areas that we can do a restoration to enhance where they breed at to kind of boost their numbers? So that's why we did this study. What are the impacts to us? If they don't impact anything, do we need to waste any time going after these fish? We did some population monitoring studies, and this was based on carp larvae. That map up on the top, the red, the orange, and the yellow, and the blue are all locations where we found carp larvae. The black dots are other spots we went that we found no larvae, and so that means there was no reproduction taking place in those lake locations. I should also put on here that there would be a dot right there by Lafayette on the Whiskey Bay Pilot Channel, that if we put that dot in place, it would span across that whole map. That dot had over 100,000 larvae in 3 samples at that area. And so we can have some really, really dense populations of larvae there. Also on the bottom, if I put that larva, the 10,000 larvae, 100,000 larvae there, it would blow out that graph also, and you couldn't see it. So we had one really good year in 2023 that that area was basically liquid carp. These were done with a plankton net. So to give you some idea of what kind of density it is, plankton net's about 18, 24 inches in diameter, and we pull it through the water for 10 minutes. So you can kind of see that pulling through the water for 10 minutes, you could basically wave your hand in the water and probably feel those little baby fish. We did show that we are having an increase, as you can see in that graph. We are showing more larvae over time. And then something else we did is these things have to be put in a slide. They're about the size of your pinky nail, and they're really hard to identify. You have to count body segments of this fish versus other fish. And so it gets to be really a mind-numbing task, usually performed by grad students in the peak of their career trying to get a good job. And it's horrible. I've done microscope work. That's probably why I have glasses. Anyway, we developed with UL an automated larval AI system, basically. You take a picture of the larva, and the AI tells you if it's a carp or if it's not a carp. And so we're working with them to get this to be a little bit better in the future to where we can identify down a species of carp. And it's really cool, and it's going to help a lot of states. States like Oklahoma, who I've partnered with in this project, they don't know if they have reproduction going on. They're presently going through bottles and bottles of samples looking for that one larva that's going to tell them if they have breeding or not going on. And so how you manage it changes. If you don't have breeding, then your population is a sink population. While it's causing damage, it can't do any damage to anywhere else, and that fish will eventually die out. So you might see in here some of those other populations, North Shore of Pontchartrain, those would be sink populations. We do occasionally have a fish there, but we're not worried about them breeding there. Okay. What I've really been spending most of my time on is this is a 10 cent a pound fish. We have a commercial industry in Louisiana that's a good, viable industry. These guys are willing to fish. They'll go out and fish. I've talked to them. They would love to catch more. They just can't sell them. There's no use for them. And so that really struck me. And so I went, knowing my background in commercial fishery data, I went in and I said, we need to make them worth something. So we looked at if you could use these fish as a starter feed for catfish. Can you grind them up, put them in a feed instead of using pogies and shad, and use them to feed catfish? Can you use it to, and yes, you can. Can you use it for rainbow trout? Yes, why rainbow trout? Catfish and rainbow trout are the two highest prevalent aquaculture species in Louisiana, in United States. Also, rainbow trout are a good surrogate for salmon. We had partnered with Omega Protein. They provide salmon feed for Europe. And so they wanted to know how good it was as a salmon feed. It's perfectly fine for salmon feed. The other thing that we have is crawfish bait. What we found out is that the 500,000 pounds roughly a year, most of it goes to our bait for crawfish. The problem we have is bait storage during the off season. No bait dealer wants to risk a hurricane coming through, knocking out his freezer, and he loses all of the bait that he already paid for in hopes that he can sell it off quicker later on. And so the way around that is to see if we can develop an artificial bait, much like the pellet baits that we use now in the industry, that would catch just as good as the Southern Pride bait. And you can see that graph there. Our carp bait catches about one crawfish less per trap. This is only year one of the study. We're tinkering with the formulation over the next 2 years, and we hope we can boost it to where maybe it catches more. In some feed studies where we put the crawfish in an aquarium and it has to go right or left, it has a tendency to go to the carp more often than it does to the other fish. And so they are oily enough. They do attract crawfish. Just in the actual pond studies, we only get one, we get one less crawfish. So hopefully that turns out to something, and that can convert that off-season product into a basically shelf-stable bait that can be warehoused, and we can get more carp out of the water that way. So if you remember back a couple of years, a year or so ago, we had that internet outage. And if you can't tell by now, I'm a giant jokester and like to have fun. And so me playing around in a boat while we're out tagging, I decided to be a carp and put my head in there. And so I really do a lot of thinking of what's driving these fish, where they're at. When I'm out enough, I can almost sense where the fish are at in the water based on what I've seen before. We come up to a deadfall and we're like, there's a carp there. Come up to another one, like, just don't look right. Me and the boy from LSU that does the telemetry stuff, that's him in the cap right there, bending over. We kind of get in this where we can talk back and forth and go, yeah, there's one there. We're really getting to know where the fish are at. And so because of that 2 day shortage of computer time, I was left to my brain and a whiteboard. And I came up with this model. And this model, many people have looked at it. I've written it down on paper and some slides. You see a few slides of it. It fully captures what's happening with the carp with some pluses and minuses. You know, if the agency goes out and catch the fish, we're hurting our commercial fishermen. If we pay somebody else to do it, what happens to it? Can we make a bait? Can we catch them this way? And so that boils down to this. And you can see the circles on there are where we have some research going on. We're looking at the telemetry to see if they leave, if they come in. We're looking at the reproduction. We're looking at the stable isotope of who's eating them. Bass do eat them. We know that. Are birds eating them? We're trying to figure that out. But that bottom part right there is really the one that we can use to drive them to a lower population. And so let's look at that one a little bit. Wow, this is a mess, right? Basically, what this shows is all the stuff that we can do with them. If you do agency removals and you put me out there in a boat with a couple of guys, we're going to be more expensive per pound than would it be if a commercial guys go out. Not because we don't catch as good or anything, but because we have a salary that's guaranteed to us, whether we catch one fish or 1,000 pounds of fish. And so that's not really a good use of time and money. And so you got to look at the commercial side. Recreational people, they don't bite in a hook. They don't do anything but jump in your boat occasionally. So you're talking about dozens of fish harvested a year. We can't put enough boats running out in circles to get those fish. And so really you're stuck with the commercial side. And so that's where all these different things. Bait. Can we do anything to drive more bait to Louisiana? Prohibit out-of-state bait is an option. We get bait brought in from other states. And what if we don't? That could double, triple, maybe even quadruple the amount of bait harvested in Louisiana. Could we use them for feed products? And I have the catfish, rainbow trout, alligators. And so that's what this model does is it kind of looks at all the ways we can use this fish, all the things that are impacting this. People don't like to eat them. They're not a bad fish. I don't know if any of you have had them. They got bones in them. If you don't mind a few bones in your fish, their bones are thin, they're wide bones. You try not to cut them because they splinter, but they're not that bad. They taste like catfish to me. Fried catfish when they were fried, it was about the same. It might be a little bit juicier, maybe a little bit moister. I don't know how else to describe it. They're not as dry or flaky as a catfish, but they're good. And so this is the kind of thing that's driving what we're doing right now. So some of the future directions is currently right now, Louisiana's commercial fishery is harvesting in that green box. And what this shows right here is the length of the fish. And just for reference, 300 millimeters is about a foot, 600 is 2, 900 is 3. And so our fishery is basically catching 2.5 to 3 foot long fish. That gray box right there that you see is the area before they reproduce. It's called growth overfishing. We've done this with redfish before. In fact, this animal, its growth curve, that's those lines on there, kind of resemble a redfish. Redfish kind of gets to be about 2.5, 3 foot long, about 4 years old, and they reproduce. This fish is very similar. And so if we can kind of adjust our fishery to be in that gray box or even in the red box, we might be able to really push these fish to have less because they're dying before they reproduce. The fish we're catching now, they've definitely reproduced once. They may have reduced 6, 7, 8 times by the time we remove them from the water in our current fishery. And so we're trying to focus on that. To get to that end, I am doing a commercial assessment. I'm going out to the fish houses starting in January. I will take 50 fish every month. We will age those fish and see where they fall in this. That's the age along the bottom. And we will see if we can start to push the fishery to below age 3.5, 4 years old, into a smaller fishery to start hitting them before they reproduce. We're also doing a gill net selectivity study where we're doing varied sizes of gill nets, mesh sizes of gill nets, to see what's the sweet spot. What catches the carp below 4, but doesn't kill a lot of native fish, doesn't cause other unintended problems. And so we're hopeful that in the next year or two, we need 12 months of good data. So we'll overlap that for a couple of months, about 18 months of data. We're hoping that we can characterize our fishery, and we can make some recommendations to the fishery, either through incentives where, hey guys, if you fish with 3-inch nets, we will give you an extra 10 cents a pound, or something along those lines, or maybe we'll buy them the nets. And so if we can do that, we might be able to get these fish before they reproduce, and we'll see our larval numbers going down if we're having success. And we hope that's the solution to the problem. And with that, I'll leave you with my boss. Like I said, my boss refers this to the carp serial killer slide. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Manifesto. That's your carp manifesto.
Yes, pretty much. Yep. It's grown even, this is an older picture. I've had more stuff on it. That whiteboard will probably never be able to be cleaned again, but I've asked for a bigger whiteboard and I was told no. So
Rob, at one point I heard, they were looking at, stocking silver carp that was sterile. They could reproduce, with the hopes that maybe you can reduce the population by, creating sterile fish.
yeah,
across the board.
there's a couple of ways to do that. They can do the sterile triploids, and the idea there is that you basically swamp them out of the system. The problem with that is that these things lay millions of eggs, and so all you would need is one male to get in there and fertilize those eggs. And so you could possibly just create more of a problem. Um, the other thing is there's no real good way to tell if a fish is a sterile or not when you're removing it from the water. There's also some genetic modifications you can do. I don't want to call them genetic engineering, but through like the triploids, the ones that are sterile, you can apply pressure to the eggs when they're fertilized. And what that does is it forces a second sperm in or two eggs to merge, and it causes them to only be able to produce male or female only offspring. And so you can kind of swamp the system with that, then you stop and the system crashes. The problem with that is it takes tens of generations to do that. And these fish they will live 13 to 15 years. So I don't see the United States going 150 years in the future to keep dumping these fish into the water. So it becomes more of yeah, it's possible, but do you have uh, the finances and the stomach to keep producing these fish and not see any returns into the very end? They've done it with mosquitoes and some smaller fish where they put in these females that can only produce male offspring and that crashes them. But you're talking about weeks of a generation time versus 15 years.
What makes the car jump with the motor?
Um, so we think they have some kind of, I don't want to say sensory, they have a big empty spot in their skull, and it could just be that it vibrates and annoys them. Um, that's the easiest, why. Um, I was a student for Dr. Hosey, and he's known for the fish of the Gulf book. And somebody asked him, why do mullet jump? And he says, because they like to. Um, I think they jump because they don't like the noise. They're trying to get away from it, and that's a faster way of getting away from something is to get out the water and move. And so I really don't know what causes it, but I'll tell you, they are the most annoying fish to try to gill net. I've seen a fish swim up to the net and just lay down on the bottom and not get hooked. I've seen another one swim up to the net, jump over the net, jump back over the net, jump over a third time and swim away. They have some sense or eyesight or something that they can feel that net. That was what that Lake Bruin study. It was a live scope study to see behavior against fishing gears, and we haven't got a good picture yet, but just from what I've seen, they have some ability to sense that net.
Any other questions?
What fly that you fit for?
I couldn't hear that one.
He said, what fly do you use to catch that?
Um, if you can tie phytoplankton on a fly, which would be the smallest hook you can find with some green thread, you might have a chance.
That's a treble hook and snag it.
Treble hook and snag it is probably the best way. Go find you some moving water below a dam, and you can see them tailing a lot of time, just kind of on the surface. Snag away.
Rob, what eats those small carp?
So bass, anything that eats anything shiny, bass will eat them. We know we have some evidence of that in our stable isotopes that bass are eating them.
How about, catfish in the rivers?
So I know they use it as bait. I wouldn't be surprised if catfish eat them. I wouldn't be surprised if gar eat them. I have some juveniles that I caught about a foot long that had big teeth rake marks on the side of them that the only thing I could think of was a gar. And so, you know, that could be, I didn't mention it, but our numbers down here, we have, like I tell people up north, they have thousands of 2 foot fish. Down here, we have hundreds of 3 and 4 foot fish. We don't have the population they do. I think it's our predators. I really do. I think it's our gar. I think it's our alligator gar, our alligators themselves, bass. I think everything just puts a hurting on them. And, it's why we all like fishing down here. We got a lot of stuff to catch. And so I think that's the reason why.
I know our native paddlefish are already in trouble. It seems like they're a direct competitor to them, so y'all are concerned that they could outcompete the native species, especially like that paddlefish, right?
Yes, sir. And that's why I kind of pushed for that study. I was hopeful. We're doing some more stuff with the paddlefish. I haven't got the results from it yet. Erdic's doing that up in Vicksburg. But that's why also we're looking towards that expansion of our telemetry array towards the Mermentau, because the Mermentau is a good population of paddlefish. I've been told by people up north that most of the year their paddlefish are scrawny and just suffering. But believe it or not, when when the carp have their spawning runs and breed, the paddlefish gorge themselves on the larva. And so, one can think that perhaps if we had a river that was healthy and had the correct population of paddlefish in it, the paddlefish might have done us a favor and knocked these things down and never let them get established. That's me. That's my opinion. Um, when I hear people tell me that they'll cut open stomachs of paddlefish and they're just full of carp larvae, carp juveniles, you got to wonder if we had a good population of paddlefish up in Arkansas when they escaped, could they have, vacuum cleaned up most of the larvae? Maybe we would have been delayed a little bit. Maybe things wouldn't be as bad. But yeah, we are concerned. I'm not going to say we are concerned. It's on our radar. We're looking. We don't do much with paddlefish. Yeah, you probably see on there I have stock paddlefish as one of my predation things up there. Um, I threw everything I could think of out here. If I could teach alligators to eat carp, I would. But it's something to look at. Do these fish, um, are they really impacting our paddlefish?
Any more questions? Well, if not, we're gonna let you go, Rob. We really appreciate it. It was a great talk.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity. I'm sorry I couldn't make it up there. As y'all said, you got hunting and fishing day this week. I'm already running short on hours to go and work out there and not work for free. So I couldn't take the hour or so ride up there to visit you guys. I really wish I could. It's better in person. You kind of get a feel for the crowd and all. But I appreciate the opportunity. And look, if any of y'all have any questions, see any of these fish, y'all can contact me. I'm more than happy to talk to you. If you want chance, chance catch, I can send you my wildlife and fisheries email and my office number. I think you have it. You can share it with the club.
Okay, well, we have this, meeting recorded.
Okay.
So that members of the information.
All right. Yeah. So my phone number is 225-765-0765. And that's my office number. I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. As he said, I'm often out in the field doing some stuff. And then my email is rbourgeois, RBOURGEOIS at WLF.LA.gov. And I'm happy to talk to you guys anytime.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate
All right.
it. All right.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and leave and y'all can enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Okay. Do we have a